we're in a part of a mastermind, and a lot of the people in there are saying, you know, every mastermind I've ever joined, it's been very ego driven, and it's just this kind of head honcho, like, hey, look what I did, one upping each other, or maybe even being there being like a shark or a hunter and trying to get all this business. And you know, I haven't experienced that very often in mastermind, but it's important when you're joining a mastermind that there isn't that vibe there and you're not coming in with that, because that's a really, you know, for me, when I'm joining a mastermind, I want deep connections. I want to be in that room to actually grow my relationships. And when you get to know somebody, then they have all their connections and they can connect you to the right people. But if you're going in there with this take mentality, it really shows up in the person that you are.
Yeah, and I think just understanding, I want to go back to something that you said. Like, you specifically said one time, we are going to be friends with these people.
Yeah.
And number one is setting that intention. But number two, just Kara said something about giving permission to connect. And your subconscious is really, really powerful and smart. We just don't spend a lot of time connecting to it. But just like you said, you were at an event and you knew that these people were going to be our friends. You knew that they were going to be part of our world because you trusted your intuition. And I think you really need to check into that, whether you're joining a mastermind or whether you're joining, you know, an online community or whatever it is that you feel like you need to join. Really just getting connected to that. And when you know that you need to do something, there's been plenty of times where we joined communities where we didn't know how we were going to pay for it. It seemed really expensive. The very first mastermind that we joined, or that I joined, was the real estate guys. And it was like $50,000. It was a lot of money. We'd never thought about spending that kind of money. And we had no idea how it was going to happen, but we knew that we needed to make it happen. And from that point forward, whenever we know we need to do something, you've got to listen to that. And I love what you're saying too, because from the other side, you've got to listen to when you also know it isn't the right thing. There's been some times where, like, there was a particular group that I really wanted to be a part of. And when you look at the motivation behind it, and it doesn't make it right or wrong, I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but there was a certain group that I wanted to be a part of. And literally when you hear, I don't know if you're thinking about the one that I'm thinking of, but when you just even hear about the way that I was saying it, it wasn't because I really wanted to connect with these people or I wanted to be friends with them or I felt a deep connection. It was because I wanted to be in that room to get certain relationships. So this happens, and it's okay. Like, if you know you need to get certain relationships or you want to learn a certain skill set and there's a group that can give that to you, that's okay too. But for Kara and I, we're really led by, I didn't end up joining that group. And it was kind of like the wrong driver for me, because we're driven by relationships first and not necessarily outcomes. So it's okay to be part of groups because of an outcome. And I think that's usually what happens in the mastermind communities. But for me, and I'm not saying I won't ever join a group for a certain outcome. If there's a skill set that I want or need, or if there's particular connections that I need or want, and we all go into it knowing, you know what, we're big adults, I'm going to pay you to do a certain thing, you're going to deliver a certain thing, that's fine too. But I think what Kara's really hitting on is super important, because if you really want bigger, better relationships and connections, I love what you said too. When you know that you need to join something, you do it, but then also how you show up is extremely important.